It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, we're joined by Maddi and Jenna for another look at their Cooma trip, offering some rebuttals, corrections, and misadventures at Linus's expense. And now, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the chemical degreaser to Steven's rubbing compound. I'm the cause of cancer in California, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, it is time for the epic conclusion of the Cooma adventure, Cooma 2 Dark Territory. We're joined this week by both Jenna and Maddi to tell the story of being at the Cooma event and all of the shenanigans there, and also as sort of an updates and corrections to everything that was either left out or was inaccurate about last week's show regarding the road to Cooma. So
that's true. And one thing I would like to mention is that you had asked sort of what was our most interesting breakdown / what was the most interesting, thing that happened or your favorite part of that segment of the journey? Mm-hmm. And I didn't think about it at the time, but those two things were, in fact, the same event. Mm-hmm. And that event was when Linus's entire clothing wardrobe bag was saturated with coolant.
Which you were not actually there for.
I wasn't, but I saw the aftermath.
And we will be discussing that more in depth.
Yeah, so further to that, the responsible parties are with us today.
We were just witnesses to what God created.
Yeah. Well, let's start off then. We'll do just a quick recap of the journey from your perspective. So how central to your journey was Button Man? Because it seemed like it sort of dominated the conversation for Ike and Linus.
I mean, he was with all of us at all times. I feel like Button Man was really my intro to the joy that is Mike Bishop. I didn't know how I was going to, on a trip like this, you meet so many different people and they're all just really interested in Land Rovers. And so yes, they're pretty boring.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And, I'm like, how am I going to interact with these people? I don't really have that much in common with them. We're camping, but I don't know. And then I realized that Mr. Michael Bishop is very into all things spooky, all things true crime. Yeah. And, we went from there and just bonded heavily on that. Anytime I wanted to hear about something spooky in the area, I just had to go to Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we stopped at the Wanagata Valley, right? Is because there was a murder mystery there. And he was
two of them.
2 murders, two sets of murders. And he was very excited to go for murder.
Bishop is maybe 5 now after you've left. Yeah, no, Bishop is, he's very much the comfy clothes and murder shows kind of guy, which is why we love him. I mean, that's a big reason. Yeah. That he's, well, that's great. Yeah. No, I mean, the amount of FOMO I have over all the fantastic folks that you guys got to spend all this wonderful time with in all these wonderful places. So you've listened to, a little bit of last week's show. Let's start talking about some of the inaccuracies. So where were the boys a little off on their recollection of the journey?
God, I would say all of it. Yeah. It's difficult to really pinpoint places. I know one thing that we do want to talk about is Jenna's amazing ability to think on her feet and the repair that you came up with was one of my favorite things.
Oh, well, thank you. We had a fun repair project at one point on the trail where Alex's 80-inch windscreen had rattled so much because we're on these very bumpy trails.
Yeah.
It rattled so
roads.
much. Yeah, corrugated, but also, just really not just corrugated, like lots of rocks kind of sticking out where you're just like, and it was just
Australian rules corrugated.
Yeah. It was kind of relentless on some of the stretches of roads, and like every truck suffered some like vibration and bump related damage.
Injuries.
Yeah. And so one of those things was on the Series 1 windscreens, there's kind of a common failure point at the kind of bottom corner of the glass. And that happened to Alex's. I think it had been previously repaired once before. Like there was old welding glob on it, but it failed again. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to like splint it back together, because we were not out of the trails yet. And we still had a whole other day of trails to do. And so I think Ike and Alex and I ended up, you guys rolled up a little bit after that. We got to the top of this hill and we were kind of waiting for the rest of the group to reconvene, and we're troubleshooting it. And we tried could we hold something up to it and like brace it on, or how would we reinforce that point? How would we splint it together? And I'd remembered that a couple of days ago we were having, I don't remember what issue, maybe something that needed hammering on it or something down in the engine bay, but Linus had pulled out this like random piece of steel rod from somewhere. Who knows where he had it? He probably had it in his overalls from the US, but
he brought it from home.
It was like a 2 foot or maybe 1.5 foot long piece of
several of
steel bar. Like
that's just his overalls
bar.
rod. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Of course. Yeah.
And so, anywho, so it was like stashed behind the seat of one of these trucks, and I was like, I wonder if that would fit inside the windshield frame,
of course,
diameter too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so it magically fit. It was really pretty great. And Alex had actually brought like a portable, like a battery operated angle grinder, so he was able to cut a little chunk off, and Ike and Alex kind of jimmied it open enough to get the little tube in there, and it worked great.
Wow.
It was the perfect inside diameter of an 80-inch windscreen frame, this piece of steel.
Wow.
And
it was amazing.
so it not only did it fix it, it was an invisible repair. It was amazing.
Yeah. Like to the extent that like we should all like just start bringing a little piece of, like a 2-inch long piece of that perfect diameter rod and put it in the spares kit, like it was
pretty fast.
Magic.
It was pretty
we
It was
had
pristine. It was great.
I've often said that the PTO hole on the back of the Land Rover is the perfect thing to take.
Is this an embarrassing admission?
And
right
it
now?
is, yeah. to take one of your steering links and bend it back straight once you've slammed into something and made it into a U, you can bend it back in there.
On a 109 wagon where the fuel tank interferes.
Yeah, it interferes with it. You can't get it in far enough. But yeah.
But
well, there you go.
Another casualty though of that bumpy road leads us to. So we're driving this amazing trail, right? Really cool, but super bumpy, insanely bumpy.
And we're in the truck that we borrowed from Dorian. I spent the trip calling it the Sow truck because she has a bumper sticker inside of a it's from like a restaurant in Queensland that says like I pigged out at this restaurant, so I call it the Sow truck.
Right.
I called it shitbox the whole time because
she was a shitbox.
Yeah. So anywho,
so that was the truck that Linus and I were in for the majority of the trip, which I'm sure he expounded upon, in great detail.
He loved it. He had very fond memories of it. Yeah.
So it had all of our camping gear. I think we had pretty much split the groceries like 50-50. But we had a good chunk of groceries.
You had a lot of it.
Yeah.
And so this was the first point of the trip, I think, that we really got to, at least once we had started camping, that Jenna and I had, girl time. We had girl driving time. It was great. And we had like a whole like afternoon into the evening of girl driving time.
And this lovely road. It was bumpy, but it was like really beautiful, like scenery. But very bumpy.
It was very bumpy.
Very bumpy.
So we were coming out of, we had been on a high elevation area, and then we're winding down these switchbacks to get down to actually
into Wanagata Valley.
Yeah, into Wanagata Valley.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point we stopped because there was firewood. And as you know, if you see firewood, you should grab firewood, which is
you grab it,
especially when you're driving the pickup.
Yeah,
we had the pickup. We're like, well, we better grab
it's your
firewood.
responsibility.
It's a very smart, responsible thing to do. Responsible is the good word. And
with
so
the group in mind, this is like for the better good. The group.
I mean, we really are the only ones who think.
Bob Ives isn't pulling over lest his bum cools down from the seat warmer, so he can't.
True. We didn't want to let
once
that
he's
happen.
in, he's in. Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
And so we stop, we grab a decent amount of firewood.
There was a really good pile. We're like, these are good pieces, and they're dry and they're like,
we're
good.
thinking about our menfolk. We're thinking about our menfolk.
Yeah.
We want to keep them comfortable and warm by a fire.
And we got to make dinner later.
And so then we keep driving, and we know we've got about an hour after that. And, the bumps start getting a little bumpier. And I look in the back and I realize, we've been hearing the pile of wood start really moving. And we had
Steven's
purchased...
excited to hear more about this heaving pile of wood.
Tell me about the heaving wood. Yes.
Yes.
So I recalled at that moment that we had purchased in our grocery pile, which Jenna and I, of course, did the grocery purchasing and planning, as we do, which should be remembered at this point in the story. And I remembered that we had purchased 2 clamshell plastic containers of raspberries.
Okay.
Clamshell.
Yeah.
We're showing.
Clamshell. Yeah.
I look in the back and I see that there is a clamshell container with nothing in it, just sort of flapping in the breeze, bouncing. And so I immediately grabbed a GoPro and get some really good, really moving footage of what has become just raspberries smashed into firewood. And we thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, we're like,
Because
it looked like there
maybe
was
some of them
another
will still
murder
be
in the Wanagata
maybe
Valley.
we can put some in drinks. Maybe they may not be
All we're thinking about at that point is just these poor raspberries. We don't think of anything else happening. We get to the campsite, we park the truck, and then we immediately all turn our focus to there's a little cemetery nearby.
Right.
And so we all, I'm sure the guys talked about that part. We all kind of pile in and on the car, and we get to the cemetery.
We piled on an avian. Check it out.
And then we're coming back, and we see at the back of the truck, the tailgate has been opened, and we see the world's saddest man, Linus, standing and looking at this truck like he's witnessing the entirety of the Holocaust all at once. And we just start laughing because it was just very funny.
Really
and then we're like, oh no, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then we realize all of the beer had been back there, and so the beer had left its containers and cardboard and had just there were a lot of them that had broken.
Yeah, not just cans out of cardboard, but they were burst and leaking and just puddling out of the truck, like beer just running out of the car, muddy.
We didn't see this because we were driving, but there's a a goo stream that has been coming out. Like it was definitely a slurry. And then we start unpacking things, and we realize, along with the raspberries and some of the other grocery juices,
as we're unpacking, there's raspberries, actually a few smashed into the top of Linus's Filson bag, and I'm like, Patty, a few of these raspberries got in Linus's bags. I'm trying to like wipe them off, and then we realize that we are not just in a very little dabbly kind of mess. We are fully into what we will call spilson. What was the fluid? It was a concentrated radiator fluid.
Oh, only the best.
Yeah, that had basically exploded. The container broke and was covering the floor of the truck, which meant that every bag that was touching the floor of the truck was covered in
saturated,
saturated
blue green, lime green, coolant concentrate, like a syrup
mixed with
beer.
Not just beer, 4X gold. What was the name? That
is the Molson
Milton.
of
the Molson of
they were referring to it as Milton mangoes. It was
right,
4X.
And smashed raspberries,
a variety of other grocery sundries. I will say some of my items also were damaged in this, but I didn't blame anyone. Did you see me yelling or blaming anyone like some other people? I didn't.
That's because you're to blame.
That's absolutely not true.
The trail to blame. The trail is to blame. The firewood may not have actually caused the problem. We think that actually
we'll never know.
I think that coolant jug might have cracked way before.
It was probably a little broken when it was purchased.
Yes. And then it was smashed to smithereens. Yeah. Wow.
So all of this was infusing Linus's dirty underpants in.
So we lifted Linus's bag up then, and the entire bottom of his like Filson duffel bag was just green.
That's true.
And so then he sadly pulls it out and sets it on the ground. And he's like, I just have to throw it away. We're like, we can wash it out. It'll probably be okay.
He was very deeply upset.
Yeah.
It was like halfway into the trip, so he's like, oh no, all of my clothing is saturated with coolant.
Which is a valid concern. I mean, it's
fair
like,
enough,
that's a rough, all of your
felt
stuff.
bad.
Yeah.
But he took it to a level that I feel was a little inappropriate.
But he feels bad about that too.
He didn't
I'm sure
mention
he
it.
does.
He didn't mention it last week, which is interesting.
He's trying to block it from his
It's too
memory.
fresh.
It's
Yeah,
true.
the trauma is too
It's
fresh.
true.
He can't. He's not ready to really work through it yet.
And I will say, we
yeah.
were able to get that Filson back into basically ship shape.
Yeah.
And
It's
he still
perfect.
has
It's
it.
fine.
We rinsed
It's
it out.
totally fine.
We dried it by the fire.
Mhm.
Right.
We went full Little House on the Prairie.
I mean, I feel like, a lot of Linus's stuff feels like it may have at some point been soaked in coolant. So
Yeah.
It's
I'm
true.
surprised that
He also wears basically the same outfit all the time.
Absolutely. I
And he was
actually am
wearing
not
an
sure I've ever
outfit.
seen him wear anything else. I wouldn't know. Yeah.
His house,
I think he
his
would've been
closet
fine.
looks like the Bat Cave, and when I say that, I mean it's just every outfit's the same.
That's exactly the same.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the guano.
Yeah. Guano, yeah. Just an actual bat cave. Yeah. He sleeps upside
And I
down
will
from
say-
the roof.
That night, it was very chilly. And when we were
Mhm.
getting ready for bed,
Mhm.
I asked if I could wear his alpaca sleeping socks because my feet
Mhm.
were cold. And he
Yeah.
told me no.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't
But didn't
wearing
wear them himself. No.
He did not.
Wow,
They
just
were
Spiteful.
unscathed.
Spiteful.
He told me no. There
just
was
a
no
punitive,
explanation.
Wow. Jeez.
So
wow.
I want him to sit with that. I want
Yeah.
him to listen to this and sit with that.
Mistakes were made. Wow, that is that's fantastic. I have a few questions. Did Linus smell like coolant and raspberries for the rest of the trip? Because I think that's
A
no
lot
more
of-
so than usual.
It's
A
not
good
strong
chunk-
enough to overcome his normal
natural
pungent
musk.
nature.
Yeah, his natural musk.
Really, only the stuff at the bottom layer had really gotten it. So
Right.
there was a big chunk of clothing that he couldn't wear for the rest of the trip that went into the dirty clothing garbage bag.
Right.
And then there was a lot of stuff at the top that didn't get any coolant
Which is
on it
fine.
at all. And the
Like, no big
raspberries
deal.
did not permeate. So
Right.
he had a bunch of clothes that were fine.
His furry costume was fine.
It was fine. Yeah. Did the wood burn better or worse having raspberry and coolant all over it?
I mean, probably better.
Indifferent.
I think better.
Indifferent.
I
Maybe a
think
little bit
actually,
better. Yeah.
For
Like
It
we
gave
were
it a
doing this for the
fruity
benefit of the group.
essence, like you would,
Yeah.
like an apple would or something,
That's true.
So we're calling Duffelgate then. That's a net win. That's a net win
Yeah.
in my book. That sounds
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, we were up. We couldn't decide between Duffelgate and Spilson.
I like them both.
I like Duffelgate. I like Duffelgate, even if you're not familiar with the Filson brand, Duffelgate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say
Oh,
Jenna came
man.
up with both of those. So.
Well, then it's worth it. Definitely, that's worth putting in the Filson magazine. I think having Linus describe that story in their quarterly periodical, I think that's definitely worthwhile. All right. Well, so then what's next? Now Linus is somewhat coolant saturated. You're in the graveyard. What'd you guys get up to next that the guys forgot to
Ooh,
talk about?
we saw that tiny snake.
We did.
So
We did.
this whole trip, like every time there was talk of a snake or everybody saw a snake,
Right.
they're almost always dead on the road. We saw lots of
Mhm.
dead
Well,
snakes on the road.
Uh-huh.
And there was talk about like basically these brown snakes and how poisonous they are. And so,
Very
in the
poisonous.
States, we see a cute little snake and, you might
Yeah.
pick it up, at least
no
get
big
close
deal.
to it and check it out.
Yeah.
They're not, nothing is, almost nothing is venomous here. So there's this microscopic snake underneath Maddi and Linus's tent one morning. They pick
Mhm.
up the tent to like
It
air
was
it
the
out.
next morning.
Yeah, it was the next morning. And it's this like tiny little, like, I feel like it was like almost like purple. It was like this really
Mhm.
dark,
It was
Just
very cute.
very
Covered in
little-
raspberry and coolant, though. Unfortunately,
Probably that's why it was that
and
color.
I think by that point, Bishop had identified me as the threat to the safety of the group, as the person
Yes.
who was going to touch a snake
yeah.
at some
Right.
point. And so
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, a snake. And I can hear
Yeah,
him
he's like, "Don't
running
touch it."
from the other side of the camp. Like,
Get away from it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Get away from that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, okay, tell me what it is.
Mhm.
And then
Hey.
he never really fully said, like, that's a brown snake.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if
So-
they knew, but everyone was very concerned.
It's
that
a
we
super
were
I
venomous,
think it's a-
face biting.
they were gonna touch,
yeah,
kind of
Reasonable concern,
poisonous snake. Yeah.
I mean, I've been touching lots of other wildlife at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, she tried to get into a kangaroo's pouch, and it was embarraesing.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, it's hard
Yeah.
once you
Well,
get your front top half in, like,
It's
and your
true.
bottom half's dangling out,
It's
like,
true.
and you just got,
There's
yeah,
a lot
you
of
just
goo
gotta
in there.
kind of just
yeah,
go with it.
Ooch around.
Well, you guys were away. Both guest hosts made a guess on who would win in a fight with a kangaroo, either Linus or Ike, and was tied 50-50. Chris, who doesn't listen to the show, thought Linus, and Eliza thought Ike. So I don't know. The only way to find out is to test it. Yeah.
I feel like Linus has the advantage of being able to like reverse pouch it. You know, you got that overall and you can pouch it just like, you know, a kangaroo pouch. You can reverse pouch that kangaroo, strap him in, and then like he can't kick you with his feet. You know, you get him so close.
That kangaroo. I'm ready to see that wildlife show.
Absolutely
where Linus reverse pouches a kangaroo. That's strong case. Strong
on a
case.
daily basis has more weapons in there.
Yeah.
Like little tiny pieces of bar. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. You never know. Maybe it fixes a Series 1 windshield. Maybe it knocks out a kangaroo.
You never know. Those can be the same tool.
Yep, you never know. I had to give I was going to the theme park yesterday with Cooper and Abigail, and I didn't want to walk all the way back to the car when I forgot that I had my multi-tool with me on my belt. So I gave it to the guy, and I'm like, "Don't put this in lost and found. This is yours now. You have to take care of it." And the guy's like, "Okay, I guess so." Like, put it in his pocket. So maybe we've just launched that kid onto a path of. Who knows? Taking shit apart he's not supposed to. Stabbing.
Yeah, stabbing. Definitely stabbing.
I don't know. Yeah. Speaking of stabbings, so I want to know more about the Maddi driving lesson. Were you giving a driving lesson? Were you getting a driving lesson?
This was in Cooma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Well, because you're there now. You've made the trip, and you're at.
Maybe we should jump ahead. Yeah.
Like, should we jump ahead to that, or do you want to highlights?
Do you have other things?
Yeah, I think the driving lesson was like the day after.
Yeah, we got.
So we have 2 different things that happened in Alex's car.
Yeah. Well, I think the first night we were in Cooma, we ran out to the store.
We went to the Woolies.
Yeah, to the Woolies.
Yeah.
To get some groceries and stuff.
Right.
Because we got this really cute Airbnb there. Oh, well, once we got to the Airbnb, actually, rewind. We went to the Airbnb, checked in. This poor lady was kind of upset with me because we were a day late and I hadn't texted her, whatever. So we got there, we got checked in. And
we made sure not to touch anything because it was very clean and we were very
It was spotless. It was like frighteningly clean, and we were just like, oh my god, we are filthy, our bodies are filthy, like, everything in the car.
Clean raspberries, like
everything
in here a week in a Series 1 in the bush.
Everything in the car was so filthy and dusty and just horrible. So we like spent, I don't know, almost an hour probably,
I think maybe more,
like just out in the grass with like just sticks and brooms and just like you know, just throwing our bags on the ground to let the dust like explode out of all of the pores of the fabric and like hard sweeping the bags to try to knock as much dust off as possible so we didn't like totally contaminate this house. So we did that, got settled in. Then we decided to run out to the grocery and we were doing a lap.
Alex driving.
Alex was driving. I was in the passenger front seat, and then Maddi was sitting in the back. Alex has 2 cushions along the just kind of jump seat cushions on the sides. So Maddi was sitting on a cushion, but maybe had a leg kind of hanging out a little bit.
I did that a lot on the trip.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah. So anyhow, we got pulled over.
Thank you for enjoying.
By Cooma PD.
Cooma PD is out in force.
They are out like crazy. So. We get pulled over.
Owners.
The officer, pulls in behind us and is all command presence-y and not as bad as the US, but still. And then kind of grills Alex first about his registration.
Well, first he leans in and then is disappointed when he sees that I'm sitting on a seat.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that is a seat.
Yeah. Yeah, because they are very strict about people riding in the back of cars without a seat. Not that it's really any different to sit on a cushion versus not a cushion in the back of a Series 1. There's no seat belt. There's not really a seat, right? It is just a cushion.
You can register the same exact vehicle as like a 2-seater, so you can only sit in the front, or a 3-seater, or a 7-seater. Like the same vehicle. The only difference is a very thin like pad on the rear wheel arches. And one is totally legal and the other one is absolutely illegal.
So fortunately, Alex has his registered as a 7-seater.
Nice, excellent.
But it has the original plates on it. Or shall I say plate? It has 1 plate. But now, you're supposed to have 2 plates, but it only came with 1 plate originally. He has
the Queensland thing.
And it's a Queensland thing.
Shout out to Queensland.
Yeah, and we were in New South Wales. And apparently there's some
NSW doesn't
rivalry
fuck with
there.
Queensland. They don't they don't get along.
So, but they did fuck with Queensland because they were all over Alex about everything that was Queensland related. So, anywho, so he was just like grilling him about the plates and the registration status of the car and all of that, and why he only had one plate, and Alex is just kind of schooling him on like, well, didn't originally have it, and this is the original plate, and I'm not required to add a new one. And then he was grilling Alex about his license or his driver's license because
the first
he lives in England, but he has
exact same the conversation that he probably had 900 times. That
He was well prepared for this.
He was.
He had notes, he had note cards. He was he told the guy, the police officer, that how badly wrong he was about every decision that he's made in his entire life.
But then, so anyhow, he gets it all the facts, sorted out with the officer. And, there's just so many things. The officer's like, okay, fine. She's in a seat, whatever.
Just whatever.
And, but then he gets breathalyzed. So he gets breathalyzed
and we're sitting there with the same face that you have, Stephen,
like,
where you're like, we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's crazy. And Alex is like, I know like half a beer earlier, but I'm fine. And so he got breathalyzed and they told him whatever the number, and it was well under. And then the officer, like they have this little gadget with a little plastic tube on it. And the officer like hands him his tube. He's like, you have to keep this and recycle this.
They make you take your own tube.
Take your tube, buddy. Take your
Which
tube.
we found later in the weekend, like in the laundry, because it's like, and we just like kept finding it all weekend. And then we actually, and that's not the first or the only time we got pulled over. The next morning we were riding in the truck with Jackson, I think. And they like threw road cones out right in front of the car and made him pull in at like 9 a.m. Breathalyzed him and then sent us on.
Shot him once in the thigh and then just
apparently drinking and driving is a big problem in Australia.
According to Alex, anytime you get pulled over, because he saw our shocked faces and was like, what? And we were like,
they always breathalyze
they always breathalyze you, which is just
interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
You're just in Australia. They're just like, you got it. Come on.
This whole scenario. So Alex gets off scot-free. No, no repercussions. Now that is in total contrast to Alex's business partner at CKD, Rob Saracen, who 5 years previously also got pulled over for the very same offense, having somebody sitting in the back of his 80-inch. And he received a ticket and a fine.
Well, honestly, I have to say, if I were to fine one of the two, it would definitely be Rob. I mean, I think like 100% of the time, right? I mean, I think, knowing those guys, it makes sense. That checks out. Yeah, that checks
his face. You just want to fine that guy.
He has a fineable face. Yeah, God love him. Yeah, if you're going to find one of the two, that checks out. That checks out.
So I don't remember if it was the day after that. Once we got to Cooma, everything kind of just blurred together.
Yeah,
just blurs
it was
together.
Like car show and going to see stuff at the car show and going to see
Getting
the presentations.
breathalyzed.
Yeah, but like we had the presentations, like Michael Bishop and Dimbleby, and then I and Bob Ives all gave presentations at the tent at the Cooma showgrounds, and there was going to just get checked in at the Cooma show and all that stuff. And we just kept going back and forth through swap meety things, and we just had it was sort of like just we were roaming around doing various things throughout the rest of the weekend.
So I told me at some point that Alex had mentioned identifying that I was like the only person on the trip that couldn't drive these cars. And which, is a pretty well-known thing, but we don't necessarily talk about it because it's a black mark on me. It's a shame. And at some point, I think he told Ike, like, well, we need to teach Maddi to drive, which, just in case something happens, which
I told him I thought it was impossible.
It's true. It's true. And he mentioned it to me. Well, we should give you driving lessons and you can drive my car. And I was like, sure. Like, that sounds great. That sounds like a fun thing to do at
How hard can it be?
7 in the morning. This will be fine.
Not that hard.
And so we woke up it was maybe the second morning that we were there. And he and Linus and I took his 80-inch out to Polo Flats, which is like an industrial park kind of an area. It's got a gas station that doesn't have any good cold and flu medicine, which we learned when we all had the sniffles, and they didn't have anything good.
Wasn't COVID.
No, was not COVID.
It was Cooma, coincidentally.
Yeah.
We go out there and we're looking for a spot for me to drive around in where I won't murder anyone or probably harm myself or others.
Yeah, to maim anyone too badly. Yeah.
Yeah. And we found this area, which was perfect. It had a great little, like, kind of an S curve area and like a good little like turnaround at both areas. It was a really good driving spot. The only unfortunate part is that it had a very active junkyard dog who spent the morning chasing us and trying to get to any part to bite, which with a car like that, it was pretty easy.
It's not hard to jump over.
There's no
the
lack
edge.
of it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
It got to the point where he would just walk after us and then would lay down because he was so tired from chasing us. And so I get in the driver's seat, and Alex is like, well, I think you should be fine. The only issue you'll have is probably just, getting used to being on the wrong side of the road. And I was like, buddy, that is like the least of my issues. Like, I am going to have so many more issues that you haven't even thought of the issues that I'm going to have. And I love his 80-inch. It's great. And that was probably my favorite truck on the trip. I really like that truck.
It's everybody's favorite truck.
Yeah.
And so she was just a pleasure to drive, and I did some turns, and we did some looping around and kind of got used to it, and just really ran that thing into the ground. He gave me a lot of like driving tips, which I didn't understand any of because they were in Australian.
Right. Yeah.
So, he'd be like, oh, well, yeah, like, just like pop it up and there you go. And then you did it. And I'm like, great. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And
if it doesn't go into gear, just diddle the wonk
just
about
take
a little bit.
Take a crummy lefty Woolery-doo.
Yeah. And I would be like, yes. We drove it. I drove it all the way through. So Cooma, like all Australian towns, is made entirely of roundabouts.
Yeah.
And
just concentric roundabouts.
Yes.
Yeah, just
100%. And they're stacked on top of each other. And I drove through downtown Cooma and drove to the cafe where everybody else was. And so everyone else got to see me drive in, which was exciting.
And stall.
I did stall the car.
Right in front of us. Yes. Like with an audience. That's how it always works.
Oh, yeah. I'm not good at even with my truck. I'm still not. I'm almost to the point where I could like take my driver's test in my truck. Like I'm getting
fantastic.
there. I'm getting to like 16-year-old's driving level with that truck. And I still, when I'm parking at Rod Small, I will still like just.
I stall my truck and I drive it every day. It's okay.
Yeah. I endeavor to get to 16-year-old competency when it comes to driving for sure. Yeah.
Steven stalls his Freelander, but usually it's just overheating.
It's just automatic. It's just stalls, and that's when I know it's time to get out. Wherever I am, that's where I'm going to stay for a little bit. It's good. Constantly breaking down in your shitty old Freelander. Speaking of shitty old Freelanders, how was the show in general? Like, what was there? I don't even have a really great concept of. Is it more like Overland Expo? Is it more like Coachella? What is it? What is the Cooma Festival?
So it's kind of interesting. I can speak to that a little bit. Their show is arranged a little differently. Each day of the show, it was largely focused on the vendors who are there, and then on the periphery of the vendor area, which is kind of a big open field. On the periphery of that, people come and they park all their Land Rovers. So people are coming and going all day, and there's hundreds and hundreds of Land Rovers. So people are kind of going into the parking area and looking at all of the vehicles that are there.
Like
and
an improvised
the vendors
car show.
Yeah, the focus is kind of on the vendors, and the Land Rover is a sponsor, so Land Rover has a tent, and Landy Bits, I think, had a tent. It's got kind of commercial. Yeah. And so they all have displays with vehicles that they've put out. I think British 4x4 was there with their display, or British Off-Road, excuse me. And so they had a display of vehicles. KLR, I think, was there. They had a display of vehicles. So they've all got their displays out. And then on the periphery, there's kind of a track or a road. And then people are parked all the way along there. Some of them are camped. Some of them are there just parked, and then people are walking and looking at all of the cars.
25% of them are broken down.
You didn't mention the hot chocolate.
The first thing we did was have a hot chocolate. Somebody had a hot chocolate truck set up, and they had
this was not just a hot
popular...
chocolate.
No, it was like an espresso machine. They were like frothing milk and
it was amazing. I've seen
little
those.
shaving of chocolate,
chocolate shavings. It was not just.
I don't even remember who the vendor was, but they had a wonderful hot chocolate. I thought you were referring to my favorite participant, which is the guy who builds model cars, and he has a tiny Land Rover. So that guy was there, and not only did he have a tiny Land Rover, but he had a tiny crawler tractor, he had a tiny race car, and he had a trailer on which all of his tiny vehicles fit. It was It was amazing. It was amazing. That
and he's
guy is
really
incredible.
kind and gracious. That guy was just like so nice. Every time I turned around, he was giving somebody else a ride or like showing the cars to kids.
And they were also breathalyzing those kids, tiny breathalyzers.
That's true. That's true.
He apparently was headed to some like machinists, like or machinery and equipment show or some other show after Cooma. So that's why he had all of his other little miniature
tiny
builds
machinery
with
show.
him.
Yeah.
It was that guy's really incredible. And then there was a host of really amazing Land Rovers. There was a PTO display where a guy had a pump running and he was pumping water with the PTO. And there was a forward control that was used on the Snowy Mountain scheme.
Oh, nice.
And,
Cool.
you know, there was various vehicles there. There was a really cool like forklift / loader that somebody had built from Land Rover parts, which I have some great pictures of. We will share that on our Patreon. It's really neat. It's like, you know, you start looking at it and initially it just looks like a piece of equipment. And then you're like, wait, is the back of that a Land Rover hood? And is this are the pedals for the Land Rover?
The radiator panel.
Yeah. You just start seeing all of the pieces that are incorporated
that's a
into
PTO
Land Rover
hole. Oh, it has a
axles.
Land Rover frame. Yeah.
Somebody spent a ton of time building that thing, and it's a super neat thing. And then there was a big tent, and people were having talks, one of which our good friend Nick Dimbleby was there doing a Camel Trophy discussion. Yeah. And then Michael Bishop was doing a talk about his role at JLR and some of the vehicles they've been working on. So throughout the day, you know, there was some discussions and talks that people were checking out.
Bob Ives
Bob was talking on the Camel Cup.
Yeah.
And then
they did a team up with
Nick was
Bob and
talking
Nick.
about photography.
It was really cool to
pretty
see
cool.
all those like pictures of Nick like as a young, you know, lad, like
It's
out
my
on
favorite
these
part of that book.
adventures. It was so good. It was so good.
Adventure Nick. I love it. Yeah. Young adventure Nick.
He even showed a picture of our yellow trucks out in Black Rock in his presentation.
It's because it's a great photo.
It was a good photo.
It is a great
He
photo.
talked
It's
a
one of
lot
my
about how his favorite shots are the like headlights coming towards you with the dust behind at like low sun hour, you know, golden hour kind of thing.
That's a trademark.
We all know that's his favorite because he yells at you to turn your headlights on when you're driving.
The whole that was like a theme.
You should know by now.
Yeah. At one point, there was a lot of repair happening on Bishop's truck frantically to get the headlights working again, specifically because they wanted to do a driving shot across the river, but the headlights weren't working. And like there was this whole thing because that was critical, you know, for the light.
It is. Yeah. You got to have it. That is peak Dimbleby that you're dealing with
makes
there.
it a happy truck. You got to get that happy truck vibe. Yeah.
One of the best things about Cooma and what they put together was actually offsite, the driving trials.
Oh, yeah. We went and did the trials, which was a pretty cool thing.
And is it like an RTV style trials thing, like cane popping kind of stuff? Yeah, okay.
They had a few different courses set up.
There were 5 different courses, actually. And so you'd have to, you'd get points for each one or no points, hopefully. And you had to you couldn't stop, you couldn't go backwards. And you had to just like progress through these little loops, little obstacle loops without hitting the little PVC pipes on either side. Yeah. And then you'd get your score accordingly. The goal is you'd get a point if you failed any of those things. Or
you want 0.
You want
it's like
0.
golf. The lowest score wins.
Yeah, and it's not just that you get a point as a penalty for like hitting a pole. It actually, whatever number of pole you're at, you get that many points, and you're basically DQ'd from the rest of that loop. So if you hit pole 6, you get 6 points or whatever. Or actually, they're counting down. But so that was pretty fun.
I think I probably won the prize for most passengering that day because I passengered for Alex and he did all of the courses, and then I passengered with you and you did all of them. And then I passengered with Linus and he did about half of them.
Who got the best score out of the group? Who was the lowest score?
I think Alex, but you were right behind though.
I messed up that last one. So I think the first one or the second one, we got to the top, and the guy was like, great. I think you did this the fastest. And I was like shamming through there. And then but then the like third one or something, I did the whole thing in second, low second. I probably should have just done it in first, because at the end it was just like there was too much.
Fair, and to be fair, it was really rutted out
by the time we got there.
When I went through with Alex, we were like, I don't know, second or third through there, and it was just a hill basically. And by the time we came around the curve to it when I was with Jenna,
just been
it
carved
was just Yeah, it had just been carved out.
So anywho, with
the same trail is, or the same trial is being done not only by 80 inches in Series 1s, but also much heavier vehicles like
like 130s.
Defenders.
There were 130s. Yeah,
Bob Ives
they were hitting every
through
post.
there in the 130, and similar to the Destination Defender. The first 3 people got to do it, and then everybody else just got bogged down after that. So there's an RTV trial happening at this year's Anarch up in Greek Peak. So
well, that's wonderful.
They're popular on the East Coast, not here on the West Coast so much, but we're gonna push to do them here on the West Coast more, because they're super fun, super fun.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
So on the fifth course, they put a mask over the windshield that was like a knight's armor kind of helmet shaped like piece of cardboard.
So you'd only see like
just a slit out there, but you could totally just like hang out the window to look. But it meant you just like I could hang out the window and see out one side, but I couldn't see anything over on the other side of the car, and you're still trying to go through the poles and make the correct turns, and you have to do them in order. And I totally bombed that one because I couldn't see. I was looking at a pole in the foreground, not realizing where the one. I messed it up. I got like 4 points or something on that.
I was like, we need to go left, and you were like,
where's? But what was that person called? Ned Kelly.
Oh yeah.
Ned Kelly is kind of a famous Australian outlaw who fought the system, and he made homemade armor and had a shootout with the government authorities, and he's sort of a folk hero, Robin Hood sort of person like that, is my understanding. So it's frequently referenced in they've got displays, replicas of his armor and these sorts of things. But
and that happened in
stage
2004.
Really?
No.
So stage 5 was the Ned Kelly stage where you were blindfolded. And actually that one was funny because Brett got to that one and they had the windshield folded down, so they couldn't put the cardboard up. So he attempted to do it backwards instead and failed miserably, but got a trophy for it.
The most absurd way to do it. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And then, so did it sort of culminate then in this big parade? That I did see from every conceivable angle on Instagram. I think I could have made a 3D model with the amount of photos that were taken of that parade.
The event, it takes place over a few days, right?
Yeah.
So the show is a few days, and every evening everyone gathers at the local bars, usually the Alpine, and regales one another with various trip discussions and how badly their car is broken and how ingenious they are for fixing it and all these sorts of things. And that usually devolves into just like absolute drunkenness and people variously stumble home. And then there's a bunch of abandoned Land Rovers in downtown Cooma for those folks who can't drive their vehicles home because they know they will get
breathalyzed.
So that's usually what happens. So every day, something happens, and every evening there was a little social gathering. So one of the ones that we attended was the film, Jeff Lewis's film, Road to Ruin. And so we went and saw that. And then we also
we'll save that for a future.
We'll talk about that another time. But we also did a remembrance dinner for John Tarrant, who died last year, unfortunately, very sadly. And there was lots of reminiscing about John and what a great person he was in the Australian Land Rover community. So that was really awesome. And so those were a couple of the evening activities that we did. And there was like more drinking at the Alpine. Then there was I was challenged to an arm wrestling. Challenged to an arm wrestling competition, which this is not something I normally participate in. But Dorian was adamant that we arm wrestle. And there's a super great photo that Maddi took.
As I said during the event, it's not clear for you to say that you just don't usually participate in that. It's that you don't usually participate that in straight clubs.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a different kind of arm wrestling.
It's a different kind of wrestling entirely.
Entirely, yeah. That's right.
So at any rate, there's a amazing photo of that Maddi took that definitely should go on the Patreon, because that is a special.
Yeah, that's Patreon level, definitely.
That is special.
At least charge $5 for that.
There's people in the background cheering and betting, and like it was pretty amazing.
Basically, like a
It was
Renaissance
definitely a blood
painting.
sport. It's a Renaissance painting. It really is.
It's got a Last
drama.
Supper vibe. Yeah.
It does. It does. The face of Nick Dimbleby and Bob Ives and Linus and like the whole crowd is just.
Bob is the only one who comes out of that photograph not looking like a version of themselves in a Bosch painting. He just looks like he's just happy to see all of us being happy and enjoying ourselves.
Right.
He's just,
he is.
He's not part
Just
of it.
looking on at a bunch of idiots doing something stupid.
I do want to mention something else that happened at the event, and that is that was kind of amusing to me. So 5 years ago, Linus had brought an extra pair of overalls, and he met this gentleman who was very nice to us and who complimented Linus on his overalls, and Linus gave him a pair. So fast forward 5 years, and Linus has it in his mind that he's going to bring this person another pair of overalls.
A new pair, because the other pair were like a used
new pair. Yeah, so he's like that person. He has it in his mind that Brendan Ockers, who is a Series 1 enthusiast, has a really nice Series 1 107 wagon, has a really nice 80-inch, and is a generally nice guy, super great guy. So he has in his mind that Brendan is the person that he gave the overalls to 5 years ago, right? So he
talked about it for
packs
about
them
a
in his
month
luggage.
before we left.
He's like, this is going to be great. I'm going to give him a new pair. He's going to be so surprised. So
that was the first thing that he was worried about with the suitcase as well. He pulled those out and was like, just like, he was so frightened that they were going to have
God.
on them.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah.
So we get to the event. He's got them. He's like ready to hand them out. And Brendan comes up and he gives the overalls to Brendan, and they're like a large or extra large size. And he gives them to Brendan, and he looks at Brendan, and Brendan's like, he's maybe like 5'8" and like of a medium build. So he's like more of a medium large size instead of a large extra large size.
But he's
and then he starts
to
to have a doubt. He starts to have a doubt in his mind. And Brendan looks at him and he doesn't understand like why he's receiving overalls. Like he doesn't.
I have photos of all of this as well.
Yeah.
Because I was like sitting there like
the handoff, of the delivery.
So long story short, it turns out it's a completely different person. And he's given this gift to someone, and they have no idea of why they're getting it, and it's a totally different size, and it was great. It was great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we still don't know who that other person was that received the overalls the first time that we went.
A lot of this trip sounds like it was about delighting in Linus's discomfort and embarrassment. That's important.
That's every trip.
That's every trip.
It's so easy.
It is. It's true. It's not even sporting anymore. It's just sort of like.
I will say we were on a hike when this was only a couple of weekends ago, so it was after the trip, and as a quad we were on a hike, and I was making fun of Linus for something, and he stopped and he looked at me and he said, a relationship is supposed to be a partnership. And I said, this is a partnership. It's a partnership between me and Ike to make fun of you.
That's exactly
and he got very upset, and then he kept walking.
It's the stronger of the two relationships for sure, without question. So speaking of every trip, as we sort of come to a close here,
one more thing. Just the parade, the parade.
Oh, right, the parade,
The parade is like the pièce de résistance of this event. It really is. And, it sounds kind of silly, but they shut down the roads in the entire town.
Yeah.
And like 700 Land Rovers line up and they do a parade to the event ground. And so on this day, which is unlike all the other days, they fill the field with vehicles. So the field at the event grounds is totally full. And it's pretty cool. It's, you don't think of a parade. I'm not like really a parade person, but it is pretty cool to see all of those vehicles turn out from all over Australia, and all of these enthusiasts, some of which have gone to great lengths to be there.
It sounds like most of them, to be fair.
Yeah, most of them. That's fair. Getting all these really old vehicles together in one place it's a big deal. It's a big event.
I will say,
and
Jenna's the only reason that we stayed for it. So Jenna
wanted to do it.
It's like, I want to get the parade.
Wanted to do it. And so it's worth it. It was worth it.
Awesome.
And
it was great.
I rode with Jenna on this event. And I just want to give a shout out to Jeff and Anthony Mader, who rode together. Anthony is kind of one of the old original guard of Land Rover enthusiasts, and he's a real academic and really savvy and has saved a lot of information, and that information wouldn't exist without his efforts. So Jeff and Anthony really not only are wonderful people and really make the trip, both of the trips that we've taken to Australia, much better. They're so kind and generous and super nice folks. So we had a lot of fun with those guys.
Fantastic. Yeah, let's talk quickly about the way back. Yeah, so then you had to go all the way back to where you started.
That's just the beginning, because now we have a whole trip back. And so I don't know. Is that another episode?
Can we take another episode of Cooma stuff?
We'll do the brief synopsis. We made it with all these vehicles with relatively short notice maintenance, all the way to Cooma from Melbourne. Only to have to go all the way back. And so
in a day and a half.
We had to
in a day and a half.
In a day and a
flight.
half.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had to return the vehicles back to Dorian, back to Michael Bishop, and keep them in good order. And so we started back, and by this time, they're showing some issues. We have some wiper motor problems, and we have some fueling issues, and
the pickup no longer has a generator, right? Like we're swapping the battery around every few
missing front drive shaft on Linus's car. Yeah.
And so we're kind of hitting the road, and we have a couple stops that we have to make, and we have to drive several hundred miles in one day, and it starts pouring rain.
Well, and we get like 2 miles out of Cooma, and it's windy as all get out. It was windy. So windy. I'm just like white knuckled, like just being blown in every which way.
And
side to side.
JDO doesn't have.
We have no door tops.
No door tops.
We're just like
no door
not
tops.
only is the car being blown, but our bodies are being blown inside the car. Like your whole body heaves every time the gusts come through.
And then the rain starts.
It's cold.
Yeah,
very
no
cold,
door
very
tops,
cold.
no wipers.
We're
freezing cold.
We packed for summer.
We
like
did.
5 years ago when we went to Australia, it was hot. And this time we had like I had one pair of long socks, I did not have thermals or we did have raincoats, but we did not have like warm layers,
Not at all.
And so,
and as we know, Linus isn't sharing any of his, so it's a hard no on that. So,
it's true.
So
also,
I think I might have borrowed Linus's gloves while I was.
I think,
I had Brett's gloves.
He offered his coat.
Yeah. So anywho, it's pouring, it's blowing, it's cold. It was pretty intense, and we finally get to this town, and we're like, okay, this could be a good stopping point. It looks like there's like 3 hotels here. Like, let's just call it. I'm freezing. Like I literally can't feel my feet, like let's just put a pin in this.
So Jenna and I walk to all of the hotels in this whole town.
While the guys are fueling.
Every single one is full. No capacity for any weary travelers.
Meanwhile, I have found the public fireplace in town, and I'm sitting next to the fireplace and warming all of my appendages. And there's a very nice and very funny Asian lady at this hotel, and she has very
exuberant
accent, very exuberant, very funny, very smart lady. So she's making fun of our cars, and she's operating this inn, right? And the girls come back, and they're like,
"It's not an inn.
It says like it's an old hotel on the outside, but it's just a pub that
it's no longer
has an inn." Yeah.
No longer have any rooms. And so they come back and they say, well, the hotels in town don't have any rooms. And the Asian lady, she says, they have rooms. He just lazy. She's talking about the proprietor of the hotel across the road. And she was really great. And we could have taken her on the trip. We have a great photo of her in the bar with us. She's a super, super cool lady.
We wanted to stay so bad and just like get French fries and like drinks and stay there by that fire. It was so good. But the next place for lodging.
Yeah, we're looking on our phones, and it's anher hour and a half.
Yeah, of driving in the cold rain. And it is now getting dark. And Linus has, no generator. So
no headlights.
No, we're trying to use headlights very sparingly,
Yeah, right.
And so we're calling like every closest hotel, and I call this one, and
Just going down the list.
I'm just going down the list. I called a couple that were full, a couple that didn't answer, and I get this one, and I'm looking at like our whole group as I'm on the phone, and I get this guy, and he's like, yeah, like, what do you want? And I was like, oh, like, I'm looking for, I just want a couple of rooms, like anything that you have. We got 5 people. And he's like, well, yeah, like we can figure that out. We can do a couple of rooms. Most of our rooms only have, like, if you want a room for more than 2, like there'll be bunk beds. And I'm like, okay, weird.
Bunk beds are great.
And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like we will book whatever. And he's like, yeah, like we've got like the restaurants downstairs, and they've all got shared bathrooms. And I'm like, we're making a choice here. We're making a choice here, and it's maybe not going to be a good choice, but it's at least a room. And I'm like looking over at Jenna, like I'm hopeful that she's going to make it through the drive. And I was like, book them. Like, give me those rooms. Yeah. Give me those rooms.
The name of this hotel was the Aussie Flop House.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
And so we drive through the dark and the rain with Brett driving the wagon in the back, and then Linus and I in the truck in the middle. And then Ike and Jenna and JDO at the front. So we've got sort of like a blanket a sandwich of headlights.
Yeah, their JDO's headlights are terrible.
Yeah.
But at least you could follow our taillights, and you'd have some wash of light from behind from the wagon. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
And we made it.
We did.
Yeah.
And then
they had a nice dinner, and I would describe the vibe as sort of Faulty Towers.
It was amazing.
Nice. Yeah.
The building was
it's like
gorgeous.
an old hotel.
Yeah, and 1890s, very like all the floors are very slopey, and like there's a whole stairwell that's just like ribboned off. You're not supposed to go in there. Yeah, but it was
worn.
It was
kind of worn.
It's nice though. Yeah.
The carpets are threadbare.
Yeah.
The plaster is showing a little bit, but
and the people who ran it were so sweet. They were really nice.
Nice folks.
It seemed like it was just like the bar that everybody hangs out at in town, and was very like. I remember laying in like the little bed with Linus and being like, "This is what it was like to stay at hotels,
it's like a boarding
in the
house,
1920s."
basically. Yeah,
like the bathroom is down the hall, and
they're just 2.
Yeah, Linus was like, "Yes, it was exactly like this.
Yeah,
it was exactly like this. Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty great."
And then you obviously made it back to Melbourne and returned the cars because you're back here in the United States now.
We made it back to Melbourne. We left some gifts for Dorian. We washed all the cars, which took a few hours because they were just coated in mud and dust. But we couldn't feel good about leaving them, just all coated in mud and dust in someone's driveway. So we washed all the cars and checked all the fluid.
What was the problem you guys were having with oil? The pickup was like losing oil at an alarming rate, and so we got 0.9 of a kilometer from Dorian's house, and I get a text from Maddi.
Oh, yes.
We need your oil now. And I pull off, and we're like digging the oil out. We dump oil in the truck, and we go to get back on the road, and JDO won't start. The starter goes out on JDO 0.9 of a kilometer from our final destination, which was just the icing on the cake. It was.
I wasn't going to talk about that, but
that was my favorite text that I've ever sent.
I need your oil now.
I need your oil.
That's not a text that you want to get late at night.
Yeah, you don't want.
You seem happy every time I send it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's right. You always get a response. You get a response. That's right. Well, it is incredible, this undertaking. What a fantastic trip. What a neat thing to do. What a cool way to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the company formerly known as Land Rover. And congratulations for making it. So shitboxes. Yeah. So I'll ask you the same question quickly that I asked Linus and Ike last week. What was your favorite thing? If you had to pick one thing over the course of the whole week, what was your favorite breakdown, your favorite moment, your favorite graveyard, your favorite Nick Dimbleby photo opportunity?
I don't know. I really like that trail we did on the last trail day up to the top of Pinnabar and back down. It was just a really good day. We just had a good pace,
Perfect
and it was just a really beautiful trail, and there were signs along the trail that were crazy occasionally, like that there was active aerial shooting of like deer happening in the area on the day we were traveling. Don't leave the trail. And we're like, oh, well, that's interesting. Right. But it was gorgeous. The silvery trees and
we all had to work as a
team. We had to work as a team. that was a good girl day too. Like we were driving together for a bunch of that and in the 80-inch, just bombing up this trail. It was really fun.
Well, hopefully everybody has an opportunity to have just as much fun this 75th year of His Majesty's Land Rover. And thanks for coming on and thanks for chatting about the trip and sharing your experience of soggy Linus clothes and whatever else came along. And it's nice. It's nice that you could be there to take in all of the mishaps.
We had a great time. Everyone was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to everyone in Australia for being so hospitable. It was super fun, and we hope that we get the opportunity to host you guys when you come visit us.
And I can't wait
absolutely.
to
We got to get done.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Oh yeah,
we'll be back.
Well, we'll go back for the 100th anniversary. It's gonna be great. Can't wait. Those Land Rovers are just getting shittier.
Yeah.
So can't. It's gonna be way more fun next time. It's gonna be way more fun next time. You think the
way more
generators?
exciting.
Yeah. Just wait until both drive shafts come off on Linus. It's gonna be amazing. Can't wait. Well, it's been another great week. We're back again next week with a whole new show. We're going to talk to Liza and company about the G4 Challenge recreation, because while you guys were trekking across Australia, they were trekking across the desert, and of course, I was just here, editing the show. So
I can't wait to hear all about it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So unfortunately, because of all of the Australian talk, we have run out of time for Ike's review of Nando's this week. But
this really was the overpowered hour today.
Yeah, it really was.
We even saw a Nando's in Melbourne.
Oh, I know.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
I know. We have some special Nando's related content coming up here in future shows. So stay tuned for that. And if you haven't got your Anarch Diamond Jubilee 75th anniversary tickets up there in Greek Peak, please do so, because they're getting more expensive the longer you wait. And if you're not there, what do you even have a Land Rover for? You might as well. That's where everybody's going to be. You can see your own Nick Dimbleby. You can see all of both Nicks. Nick Rogers and Nick Dimbleby, the same place. I have that to look forward to. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you then. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Veris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Veris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.